So you might think that you reflect, or if you have knowledge of the Holocaust, that you reflect. But the way you have to reflect about the Holocaust, things that big, is you have to put yourself in that era. Most especially if you work in healthcare. Everyone should have to do this. Reflecting is not just learning the history, reading a paper. No, it's actually putting yourself in that time frame. Close your eyes, do whatever you have to. And you're a doctor, you're a nurse during that time frame. And the government, the hospital, the medical system in general comes under a monopoly. All the hospitals have monopolized. Slowly over time, that's happened. And then slowly over time, it's become under one umbrella that's controlled by one money maker system, and it's called the government. That's what happened during the Holocaust. I mean, by the time it got to the Holocaust, there was tons of years of it, of other things going on. So there was many years, decades of propaganda going on. It infiltrates slowly, and it slowly will infiltrate the mind. This is all mind virus, because the doctors and the nurses that went along with the Holocaust, you can just think, oh no, they're just monstrous people, but that would be a mistake. It would. Because when you start to think about you in that situation, well, and you're honest with yourself and not just say, oh, I would never go along with that. You sure about that? Jordan Peterson has talked about this. When he used to do his, because he's a psychologist, right? When he was a professor in the Canada universities, I forget which university, but he talked about this, but he used the guards outside the gas chamber. He said, do you think you wouldn't stand there and do that? That's where your paycheck is coming from. Everything is under the government system now. So once it's under the government system, in order for you to make a living and put bread on the table, do you go along with it? I think this world doesn't want you to think about it like that. Most especially healthcare, but any profession, because honestly, those people still shouldn't have went along with it. But you can understand why they did. They had kids at home, they had a wife. It doesn't justify it at all. But what the mind will do to you is help you justify so you can keep going to what you know is wrong, because you're going to place your family first. But it's not right. It's the road to being a monster. And I think the only way, this is because I've thought about this for years. Because I would struggle so many times when I would think about the Holocaust. To think about, the biggest question was, how did so many doctors go along with that? Why did so many nurses? Well, it's simple. They needed the paycheck. And not necessarily because they were greedy, but because they had kids at home to feed. Where else were they going to get a job? So it was very easy by the time it got to that point. By the time it got to the point where the government is controlling everything, they controlled the media, the whole healthcare system was monopolized and under one union pretty much. I mean, they made the nurses pick a union, and one was Hitler's union, but it didn't matter because the other union, the Red Cross, was still under Hitler's domain, because it all was. So it didn't just come in overnight. It was slow. And so most of the doctors that did go along with it, and there was so many, it's not that they were necessarily all monsters. I mean, Dr. Mengele, yes, for sure. The one that was known as the angel of death, he was referred to as. Yeah, he definitely was. He was out of his mind. And what happened is most of the other doctors became out of their mind. But before they didn't all just become doctors and were out of their mind. They were slowly conditioned to believe, no, this is the right thing, because it was slowly introduced through years of propaganda. Sort of like the Black Lives Matter propaganda. was used as a way for the healthcare system in our current day and time to justify being racist against whites. It's true. There should be, the very fact that anybody in an educated position is still in a place where the way we're going to reconcile our own racist organizational path is by placing blacks ahead of whites now, it shows that there's not a mature thinking process there. And that's what the nursing professional organizations have done. Again, why American Nurses Association blocks me. But it shows a lack of any insight. It shows no reflection. And really, I think the people that do head those organizations up, because they've been manipulated by the system, they just ignore people like me. But in American Nurses Association, I think it goes a little bit further. I mean, I'll give National Nurses United this. They haven't blocked me yet. But American Nurses Association has. But then they're tied to global. They're all tied to it. That's where you get your globalism. Again, globalism is Nazis, but on a global level. So, the very fact that people couldn't see the problem with the name Black Lives Matter was always troubling to me. And yet people didn't want to speak up about it, right? Because it's like, oh, well, I don't want to be seen as racist. No, let's just, if you want to call me racist for being honest, then call me whatever you want. But I'm going to be honest. On the face of it, it's a racist organization. But it was also paid for and created by not grassroots, but by money of George Soros, who wanted to burn a bunch of cities down and create a bunch of division. And unfortunately, all the medical profession went along with it. There are many medical professions that support Black Lives Matter. And they think that they're on some high ground with that. No, you're not. But you haven't reflected. You haven't looked into their organization. You haven't, the very fact that you couldn't see that the term Black Lives Matter was very racist against everybody else. Black Lives Matter, the fact that the medical profession got on board with that shows that they took on what they did in the Nazi days, which was called scientific racism. It's a pseudoscience. Because really, there's been enough evidence to say race is just a social thing. And so when medicine starts operating on the social agendas, then you're in the area of what happened, or prior to what happened in the Holocaust. And so many people, those same people that would march with BLM, and I'm not trying to condemn them, I'm just saying they didn't stop to think. They didn't. It was drilled into people's head that everybody should support this. And the way they went about it with Black Lives Matter is all during the summer of 2020. They got in your face and intimidated people in cities like that were in the summer when out eating, like at an outside restaurant. And they got in their faces and told them to raise their fist. They were horrible people. I don't care what color they were. And many of the people that are white went along with that, showing the insecurity of white people to do that, because they too couldn't recognize that, no, this is all wrong in every way. And that is Black Lives Matter, the organization, is what all of the medical profession used to bring in now their social justice medical system, which is what Hitler did. So it's a good idea to sit back and reflect about what you would do if you were a doctor or nurse during the Holocaust, when everything is under government control and universal health care. Because when it is, that is when your paycheck will be decided based upon what you will and won't do. And you may not be able to earn a living unless you're willing to sign off some people to the gas chamber. You think that's a far stretch? Think again. It's in the history. And globalism, well, that's Nazi, but on a global level.